And we should be good to go. Sweet. Well, I am Taylor Thomas. I do apologize about the intense static. Something is wrong with my laptop at the time, and I'm not too sure why it's doing that, but we'll get through it just fine. This is my kind of infographic presentation on communication with data scientists. So a little bit of personal background. I am currently a junior here at Stout. I'm going to be a senior next year. I currently have a double major in applied math and computer science and information and communication technologies with a minor in computer network design. So definitely a lot. This summer I will be interning at NASA over in Washington, D.C., where I will be helping design flight simulators for some of their newest weather satellites they launched this past year. Which will be really cool, working with a lot of security, a lot of packet analyzing and cool programming. So it should be a lot of fun. With that, I do have this kind of deep down passion for data science, analyzing data, looking at data, interpreting data. Some common fields and concentrations such as data mining, data analysis, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all interest me. It's kind of this big bundle package of fun. And this is, something that I've gained from past mentors, even close family members who are in this same field. I've had some classes here that do, very similar work. Just kind of compounded into, what I feel to be my kind of career passion, which has been phenomenal. So thankfully for this topic, I got to interview a incredible man, Chris Magistrato, who I met about a year and a half. We met down in St. Louis at a conference working with blockchain technology. And he was one of the team leaders there. Really cool guy, and we really hit it off and spent a lot of time talking about our passions and interests. So we spent some time after that communicating. It was really cool. He recently got a new position at Assimile, which is a small startup company. We'll talk a little bit about that. And so I reached out to him because he has this interest and this experience in the exact same field that I'm looking to go into, and since he's such a relatable guy, it was awesome. It was perfect. So a little bit of information about Chris. He currently resides in California, currently in Los Angeles, looking to move to Sacramento, I believe. His current job is Assimile. Essentially, they build management software for different medical devices, essentially kind of building the central point so they can help secure medical devices when accessing them and using them. Super cool. So they're more of a startup company, a little bit smaller. So on the side, Chris does a lot of development for machine learning algorithms. I know he works with a gentleman over in Germany, University of Munich. There's a ton of work there. Super neat, super cool. Which is kind of why I want to talk to him. He's got all this information, and he does a lot of presentations. So he's doing this communication that we're talking about. He's getting up in front of large audiences. He's getting one-on-one. He recently gave a presentation. I can't remember what conference, a few weeks back. But because of that presentation, one of the guys there walked up to him and said, "Hey, you did a phenomenal job. Really liked it. We'd actually like you to present at DEF CON," which is an incredible opportunity, huge conference around the nation. A lot of people go to for security, and it's like a $500 ticket, I believe, but all of his expenses are paid. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity, so I'm super pumped for him. But this is a little bit of background information about why I chose to talk to him. So a lot of the experience he gets comes from both his company, Assimile, but a lot of the classes he took technical writing, he took a lot of speech. He took a lot of just plain old communication and English classes. And one interesting point that he gathered from there was kind of, and I've seen this too, is when you're working in a technical field, a lot of people say, hey, you're going to learn a lot of technical jargon for what you do, but there's going to be a lot of managerial people, a lot of HR people that aren't going to understand this. So big thing that we have to learn and understand is how to reduce the technical complexity of what we're talking about, just because not a lot of people are familiar with it. And he took this to heart. He developed a lot of skills in how to kind of really better develop his communication with, when talking to management and HR. And when he got to Assembly, it was interesting because everyone knew the technical jargon. The HR people, the management people, and it was really interesting. It was surprising to him because he's like, I've never seen this before, and we're always told the opposite. So that was something, a cool story he told me, and it's interesting to think. And maybe it's because he is at a smaller organization rather than a bigger one, but it's cool nonetheless. So I will actually go to the infographic. It's got some cool information on there. So one thing he talked about was kind of the best ways to communicate, and later on we'll see how it's really dependent on who you're talking to. So in general, some of the best ways to communicate was face-to-face, doing phone calls, email, with face-to-face obviously being the most important because it's really easy to convey your emotion, what you're trying to get across. That's kind of the key value of it. And phone calls do a great job too. It's just harder for facial expressions because I feel like those are a very important part of communicating. He's mentioned that too. And then emails work also, but they're, a little hard to make it very quick to communicate, kind of slow. And emotions do not come across well. And then the worst ways to communicate, texting, social media. I put some Morse code on there because you shouldn't do it anyways, but you never know. They're just not great ways for the most part. And we're going to see several exceptions later on. One thing was group meetings versus individual meetings. There is a very different dynamic, especially from what he's seen hands-on with team meetings versus when you're going one-on-one with your boss or with another teammate. We're in those group meetings, those are planned, those are more facilitated, they're constructed, they're meant for multiple people. So it's something to keep in mind when you're trying to be more professional. But individual meetings are nice because they're very fluid, they're very adaptable. Maybe it's, you don't need to have it every single week with John, but maybe you're, having some issues or you need to catch up on the football game or something. These are just kind of held as needed. They're more conversational. They're not, we can be professional, especially if it's your boss, but if it's just your team member, don't worry about it. But these can also impact more private and personal matters. This is stuff that, only they really need to be involved or talked with. And maybe these individual meetings can include like two people, 3 people also. It doesn't have to be just a one-on-one. It just kind of depends on how sensitive the information is. Another big thing that he talked about was how you deliver information versus how you're receiving it. When you're delivering, you need to know who you're delivering to. Are you delivering, in the group meeting, or is it personal? Because there are differences in your tonation and how you're trying to get across those messages. Adapting the technical jargon, we talked a little bit about that. Matching your audience knowledge. For him, it's super easy because everyone gets the technology, everyone's involved. But bigger companies, you may not have that advantage. Another thing is allow time for Q&A. Even as a tutor, there's a lot of times where I will just hammer out a lot of information, be like, all right, cool, this is all you need to know. And then, they're just kind of sitting there befuddled because they still have more questions. So you need to make sure you're having that time so they can make sure they're understanding everything crystal clear. And then when receiving, you want to make sure that you are gaining as much knowledge as you can. Just sitting there and soaking it in isn't always the best. I always recommend writing down notes, key concepts, fast, quick. Don't be, writing out a novel. You want to make sure that you're paying attention, but at the same time you are writing down key points. So when you look back, you're like, oh, that's right. Jennifer was talking about X, Y, and Z. And then you also want to ask questions, too. I always recommend it. Sometimes you just don't have questions because everything makes sense, and that's perfectly fine. Other times you do want to provoke more information. You want to say, hey, you kind of skimmed across this information, but I found this interesting. What else can you tell me about it? And then also animate your face-to-face interactions. I know, especially for teachers, when they're giving information and they're doing lectures, you're going to see kind of the droned face on people. So animate, nod your head, smile, be like, oh yeah, little few hand gestures in there. It always makes it more interesting, and it shows the person who's giving the information that you are interested and you want to keep hearing it, and it kind of gets them excited too. So it's pretty nice. Another thing, some kind of just tips for asking and answering questions that he was talking about is perform the preliminary research. Who are you asking? If you can beforehand know your speaker, know some of the information they're going to talk about, so you can give in-depth answers and maybe have answers before they even give you the information. That's always definitely helpful to know. When you're trying to figure out a problem, I saw this post on Facebook actually. It's better to attack the problem at hand, not to really attack the person if they're asking this question. Sometimes it can come across wrong. I've seen that before when talking with students is we're getting angry, but we almost are letting that anger out on ourselves when it should be at the problem. So it's looking to attack that problem and learn from it too. Don't not to be arrogant. I know a lot of people try not to, and a lot of people aren't, but it does come up, every now and then. So then also add context to your answers. Don't say I don't know. I've seen that so many times. It's you need to add more depth. What don't you know? What is perplexing you? Is it everything? Then you need to say that. Say I don't understand the general concepts of this all. I need help. Let's start at point A. Let's go to point Z. Figure out what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And then be open to feedback. People try their best to be constructive, but sometimes it comes off a little negative. But I think most people have the intention of trying to give you information that is used to help build you. So try not to, take it with a grain of salt. Try to see, what they're trying to get out and apply that to yourself to improve, how you answer and ask questions, how you're giving information, how you present yourself, your etiquette, and all of that kind of fun stuff. And then, finally, you talked about the different types of audiences. So you have your direct supervisor. Chris, in this case, has, is his boss, you would say. So this is where you're going to be super professional with, especially in public, private. It kind of depends on their personality. Are they, really open-going, having a good time? I would say you definitely want to use face-to-face and emails. Phone calls work too. Depends on, kind of how your work's set up. No texting, no social media. Very, very, very rare scenarios would you want to do that. Managers, I would say, are kind of the other people, maybe not directly impacting you, but are also kind of high up on the organizational chain. So you still want to remain very professional. You may not have as close a connection as your direct supervisor, so you still want to kind of have that nice etiquette. Maybe not as much contact. Maybe these are more kind of face-to-face and email kind of people. Maybe pushing more on email. Team members, those are the people that you're working with day in, day out. Generally very casual. It kind of depends. Maybe if you have a team member who's more of a senior leader, but he's still technically a team member, maybe that's more professional. But generally this is casual communication. This is where it's okay to use texting and social media. This is nice because sometimes you need to be consistent with, you have updates and an email or face-to-face just isn't going to work. This is fine. It's a nice chance to also get to know these people outside of work because you're going to be spending such a long time with them. It's good to kind of know them personally. And then, of course, your clients. This is a mix. You should use professionalism if you don't know. But in some cases, you can use casual. It depends on the workplace. And in some workplaces, they're very casual, very outgoing. Your clients, maybe they're regular clients, so they're easier to communicate. You know them better. And some you may have a new client every single day, never see them again. In that case, you want to be professional. You want to show them, kind of you're representing your company, that you are doing this very nice job. And this should just be face-to-face and phone calls. Maybe sometimes emails if you're doing kind of support. Or there's just some kind of recurrent issue. Again, it really depends on the audience. And I think that's it for the infographic. So go back to present mode. Yeah. And we kind of talked about this too. So in conclusion, the big things are know who you are talking to, know your audience. It's kind of a recurring theme in a lot of presentations you're going to see. Your audience definitely matters. Also know what you're talking about. Again, with the technical jargon. Even if you're not working in a kind of technical jargon aspect, you still want to make sure you're conveying your ideas well enough. Making sure that you're talking slow, making sure you're really being articulate with your words. I know I've been talking fairly fast, I'm kind of going over time, but that's all right. And then know why the information is important. Everything you say is important, and you should hold it to that level of importancy. Because if you don't think the information is important, the other person's not going to think it's important either. And you kind of convey that through your facial expressions and your emotions and your hand gestures. So it's really working on that. But so I'll leave it right there. That's kind of a overall infographic of what I've gotten from my interview with Chris. So this is definitely super fun. I learned a lot of interesting things, a lot of cool stories he told me. That should be it. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.